Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. Thanks for being here. And this is a Missing 411 segment. And we're here to talk about missing people. A couple of things that came up recently on the comments section of our videos. There was a segment where someone talked about Missing 411 The Hunted, my second documentary. And they said, OMG, you're talking about some stealthy thing moving between tree to tree, like a predator effect. I can't believe that. I'm not dealing with you anymore. Goodbye. Whoa. Whoa. If there's anybody else out there that thinks that way, I need to set the facts out straight. The number of times I have heard from people seeing things like that in the woods is over 100. Yes, over 100. And I'm talking about some very, very credible people. This isn't something that just came about by chance. I can remember the entire staff when we were doing the Hunted movie sitting around saying, you know, when they did the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, those writers knew something. Because the predator effect in that movie is exactly what's been reported to me way too many times to be fictitious. So, I suppose the person who made that comment on the video either is uncomfortable with the thought or is so close-minded to think that our world is much more complicated than what that person realizes. I understand that some of this is very difficult to swallow. I get that. Now, the story I'm going to talk to you about today is really not for a first-time listener, because what we're going to talk about, people will probably discount right away and think, oh, this person is crazy, nuts. But if you've been here for a while and you've watched my videos, you understand profile points and you understand the subsections that we've done on these videos, you're going to be quite surprised about some of the things I tell you that happened in this one case that we're going to cover today. It's a long one. Now, when I first read this, I was absolutely stunned at how much of it falls right in line with what we know. It's a very famous case. Now, we've talked about amnesia in the past. Truckers with amnesia. Truckers who have disappeared. But what about people just driving across the U.S.? Remember, we've talked about that too, who have disappeared out of their cars, ended up out in the middle of fields. How does that happen? Let's get on to it. This case starts off with a name, Benjamin Kyle. His real name, years later after they figured it out, is William Burgess Powell. Now, this is going to go chronologically from how the story started, so be patient. This individual was found on August 31st, 2004 in Richmond Hill, Georgia. Now, this location is very important, folks. Very important. This is Richmond Hill. This is the Atlantic Ocean. This is Savannah, Georgia. This is the Georgia-North Carolina border. A major river passes right through Richmond Hill. Water everywhere in here. I've always stated, I will always state, water is a key element. It's a key profile point. Now, on that date, August 31st, early morning hours, 5 a.m., behind a Burger King in Richmond Hills, an employee walks out to go to the dumpster. As they're going out to the dumpster, they see something laying on the ground. They walk around the other side, and there's a body laying there, naked, of a man, not moving. Person got really upset. Naked man laying there at 5 a.m., pretty strange. So they run back inside, they call 911, and paramedics, police, and fire respond. Paramedics stated at the time that this man had 3 small impressions on his head, and he was unconscious. He was transported to St. Joseph's Hospital in Savannah. It wasn't a long ride. As they were transporting him, they noticed that he had tons of small red ant bites all over his body. Police and fire that were there searched the area, and they found no clothing, no ID, no witnesses. So what they decided to do is search that entire area to see if maybe that there's a car associated with this guy. It was a male. Well, they searched the entire area for blocks, and they don't find any suspicious cars, no stolen cars, no nothing. So they really have nothing to associate with this person who's laying next to the dumpster behind Burger King. Hospital takes him in, and they didn't have a name they didn't have a name ever, really. And so they called him Burger King Doe. This is important. The Richmond Hills Police Department did not open a criminal investigation on this case. The only reason you would open a criminal investigation is evidence of a crime that had occurred. A beating, a robbery, a rape, an assault, an attempted murder. Nothing. They did not open anything. Just a man laying there. There was some blood there from his head wound. That was it. So they hold him in the hospital as he recovers for 2 weeks. Still didn't know his name. So Burger King Doe is transferred to the University Medical Center and admitted in a semi-conscious state, they stated. At some point, he said he thought his name was Benjamin. During later interviews, he said that he was bounced from hospital to hospital because nobody wanted to absorb the bills because he was probably destitute and they didn't know who he was. He also didn't know his social security number. So at the time he gets the approval from the hospitals to leave, he's in a peculiar state. He has no ID. He doesn't know his social security number. Doesn't know his name. If you don't have ID, you can't stay in a homeless shelter. That's just the rules. He stated at the time that he thought there was a possibility, but he wasn't sure, that maybe he was just passing through Richmond Hill in August 2004, but he wasn't sure. He was trying to understand why he was even there because he'd never been there before. But all of a sudden he's found himself there. After an extended period of stay and after seeing several doctors, he was ID'd as having something called dissociated amnesia. At one point, people came forward and tried to help him. Some people took DNA tests, some people took fingerprints, some news organizations came out and even tried to help. He was known as Benjamin Kyle, and Benjamin was a really nice person. He came across really well every time he was interviewed. So one of the police agencies took his fingerprints and sent him to the FBI, who sent him to Interpol, International Police Organization, that can ID people traveling all around the world. They came back with an interesting finding. They said that they had no record of this person on file. What does that mean? That means some interesting things. So let's say that you apply for a job as a janitor at a school. You're going to get fingerprinted. Those fingerprints are going to go to the FBI. FBI is going to have them on file. You ever apply for a postal job, law enforcement job? Those fingerprints that are going to be taken are going to go to the FBI. If you've ever been arrested, those fingerprints go to the FBI. So, what does this mean? It means that Benjamin had never been arrested. I think that's important. In 2009, some people helped him, and the Department of Veteran Affairs searched their draft registration for his name, what he thought his name was. There were articles posted in various newspapers. In 2011, he moved to Jacksonville, Florida. And he eventually got a Florida ID after some people stated that they thought that they've got him identified through DNA. Once he got his Florida ID, a business owner saw him and gave him a job as a restaurant assistant. And then another person in the neighborhood in Jacksonville gave him a room. And before that, this poor guy was sleeping in a field behind the Jacksonville Police Department. He had gone through DNA testing at multiple levels and genetic genealogy and facial recognition. He also remembered that he had been born on the same day as Michael Jackson, but 10 years earlier. He went through hypnosis, thought he had 2 or 3 brothers, and he had some type of memory from Indianapolis, Indiana. So this was a start. But now we're talking about 5 or 6 years after he was found behind this dumpster. Still, nothing really became clear. He went through some good hypnosis sessions. And then through one of those sessions, he remembered his partial social security number. And that partial number indicated that he was either from Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, had to be in the 60s. And once they talked to him about that, he said that he had some recognition about Indiana that he specifically remembered under the hypnosis. Now, facial recognition is something that a lot of people don't know that they even go through. But a lot of different government agencies use it every day. And when that and fingerprints get no hit, that is really weird to me. And remember, he said he had 2 or 3 brothers. Well, how come nobody had been looking for him? How come nobody could remember this? Well, he continued to have these memories slowly come back. He also stated that he remembered that there were nuns in his background. And I was thinking, well, maybe he went to a Catholic school or was in church. He said he also remembered when a 2% sales tax was levied in Indiana. And that would place him there in 63. Again, continued to go through this. And then he had memories in Denver, of Boulder and Denver. Specific things he said about construction sites and what he remembered and didn't remember would put him there from the 70s to the 80s. And then he went on to talk about jobs he may have held. And he said that he remembered restaurant life, restaurant management, working in a restaurant. All these things kind of added to the puzzle. But, and this is a big one, folks. Pay close attention to the rest of this. This man had no memory after 1983 until he was found behind the dumpster in 2004. How could that be? I've never heard of anything like that. He said he had slight memory of remembering reading about 9/11. It wasn't clear from him if he remembered experiencing 9/11 as it happened, watching it on TV, or if he just remembered reading it. September 16th, 2015. Benjamin Kyle announces to the world that his ID had been guaranteed, that they found it by a group of researchers doing genetic genealogy and DNA. His identity that was established was William Burgess Powell, born August 29th, 1948. Picture hairy and beard is about the time he was found in 2004, and that's the picture in the last 10 years next to him in the tie. Now he was interviewed at about the time this was all happening. It's an interesting interview. And they asked him, they said, well, what was his experience like? He says, really, it's been like hell. People don't believe me. I was a good person. I just wanted to work. I just wanted to support myself. And he said something that was really enlightening. He said, it's sometimes amazing that nobody's looking for you. And imagine that. Imagine that feeling inside of you that nobody cared enough to even be looking. But maybe there was a reason to that. So once they established his identity, found out that he had family in Indiana. They also found out that in 1976, William left Indiana and he left everything behind. His car, his possessions, everything. He just took off. And his family filed a missing persons report. So hold your taters there. Somebody going missing, whether he purposely did this to get away from his family or not, he did get away from them. They were worried, and they filed a missing persons report. And the police in Indiana ended up finding him months later in Boulder, Colorado with a friend. Turns out that he and his buddy just decided on a whim to take off and go to Colorado and not tell anybody, leave everything behind. I can tell you that that would hurt a family very much. And there was never any mention in this case about drug, narcotic, alcohol abuse. That didn't come into play that I could tell. Now, one of the most important and critical pieces of information I can give you is coming up. Backtrack. I was a private investigator. I still am. I still have my license. And private investigators have access to databases you would never even imagine. One of them is your Social Security database. Now, a lot of people don't know. But let's say you work for McDonald's for 5 years, from the time you're 18 to 23 while you're in college. McDonald's, every time you get a paycheck, they put money into your Social Security account. And every month it would show an entry on your account, McDonald's, let's say Denver, Colorado, Denver, 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 every time they put in your Social Security account. So your entire Social Security history and in your entire work history is on that Social Security account. It says which McDonald's, the location, the month, and the year that it went in. Now, it's about 8 or 9 years ago. Angie and I are at a UFO conference. And I'm sitting way in the back of the audience just watching a speaker. Her and I just sitting there. And some guy comes up and sits next to us. I recognize the guy. He has some notoriety in the UFO world. He had claimed that he was abducted and taken away for 20 years to do some kind of project for the aliens. There's a lot of people that believed him. And he sat next to me and Angie for the rest of the conference. When I talked, he was next to Angie. It's like buddying up to us. And near the end, he said, Dave, he says, I really need to find a way to prove to others that what I'm saying is the truth. And I said, I could do that for you. And he goes, how's that? I said, well, I have a private investigator's license. And with your signed approval, I can go into your Social Security account and see during that time frame that you said you were on Venus or Mars, wherever you say you were, I can look at that Social Security history and see if you were employed somewhere. And if there's a big gap right there, well, that would be almost impossible because everyone's working, and that would go towards making your story much more credible. I'll be glad to do that for you. Oh, yeah, I want to do that for sure. Yeah, I want to do that. I said, okay, here's my email. I'll send you a form. You fill it out and I'll do it. So I get home. I send him the form. 4, 5, 6 months later, nothing goes by. I don't hear from him. So I sent him an inquiry email. I said, hey, I sent you that form. What's up? Oh, I decided I really don't need to do that. I think I can prove it myself. And that was the end of it. I won't say what I thought, but talking about this case now. Well, one of the people that was trying to help this gentleman got his approval and ran his Social Security to see where he was from 83 to 2004. And this is, I think, in the thousands and thousands of background checks I've done, and I've never seen this. From 83 to 2004, William Burgess Powell didn't have any Social Security history. That's pretty strange. Here's a more current photo of William Burgess Powell, aka Benjamin Kyle. So in October 2008, William appeared on the Dr. Phil show. Dr. Phil provided him a professional hypnotist, help him bring back more memories. It slowly helped, but he still couldn't fill in the gaps. And then in 2011, a Florida student going through film school did a short documentary about him. And the name of it was Finding Benjamin. You can look on it on YouTube. It's about 10, 12 minutes. Finding Benjamin. One of the things he stated was, some days I wished I hadn't woke up. Some days I wish I hadn't woke up. Then he said, another statement that he made in other interviews is, it's pathetic, nobody's looking for you. I can appreciate all that. When I was researching the story, I was thinking about, what if you didn't know who your mom was? Or your dad was? Or where were you for 20, 30 years? And you can't justify it. And nobody recognizes you. That would be pretty troubling, folks. Now, critical. No fingerprints in any database anywhere in the world. So he wasn't employed by anybody. that required fingerprinting, and he wasn't arrested. He has no credit history for 21 years. Now, that would be pretty hard to do. Let's say this. There's a possibility if you worked for yourself and you didn't pay any taxes and you just skipped out of it for 21 years, that Social Security would have nothing. But then to have no credit history, that would be hard. That would be really hard. To have no driver's license history, accidents, insurance, that would be almost impossible. And since they checked Interpol and they checked U.S. immigration, they wanted to see if he had traveled in and out of the U.S. Nope. At least not through conventional borders. So I'm doing this research, and you know exactly where I'm going with this. You're smart. Benjamin Kyle, a.k.a. William Burgess Powell, found behind a dumpster naked. No clothes. No clothes anywhere. And a head injury as though he was dropped. He has no memory. This is exactly like many abductees, except they get dropped back into their bed. But what if William didn't have a bed? What if whoever took him realized we can kind of do with him whatever we want because nobody cares? Nobody knows. So they don't treat him with dignity and respect. So, in my research, I look up Richmond Hills, and it is a suburb of Savannah. So, I go to the National UFO Reporting Center database, and I look up Savannah, Georgia. Holy cow. Whoa. 2 entire long pages of sightings. I think as far as a city goes, that's probably the most sightings I've ever seen for a city. It was tons of UFO sightings. But why would that be important? Well, in my research with UFOs, I know that Navy pilots that were doing training exercises off the Georgia-North Carolina coast had reported seeing UFOs continually. This is not a secret. Now, he's found naked, 5 a.m., no clothes anywhere, no memory, diagnosed with amnesia, injuries consistent with being dropped, blunt trauma. Folks, take a deep breath. No criminal report filed by the police. They never thought a crime occurred here. When you read the various things about this case, they're going to say, oh, he was beat incessantly and barely lived. No. No. If that was the case, why didn't the police write a report about it? It wasn't for years later that the police agreed to even document it. Strange case. I would actually like to meet William one of these days. He's still alive. He's in his 70s. I believe he's still living in Florida. I personally hope he has a good life. And I hope he has clarity. Because I think there's something there in his life that would unlock a couple of big secrets in our world. I greatly appreciate you being here. And I hope that the people say, oh, I hate these amnesia cases. I hope you're starting to understand the importance behind these cases. I don't throw things out in front of you to waste your time. I think this is important. So please share this on your social media. And make sure you're subscribed. Many, many, many people have been unsubscribed from the channel in the last month. And many of you are not getting notified of the videos. I upload every other day, folks. Every other day. And if you go to Tubi, go to the top, look under documentaries, or you can just put in the search bar up there, Missing 411, go to Tubi, you can watch our 3 movies, Missing 411, Missing 411 The Hunted, Missing 411 The UFO Connection. Watch them for free. Please put the link out there on your social media so everybody knows. We need to get this word out. We need people to understand what's happening in our world. Thank you for being here. Paulides out.